Today I'm going to talk about my favorite game mechanism in Chaos in the Old World. This is a game that I played years ago, must have been 4 or 5 years ago. I haven't played it since then. And then I played it a couple weekends ago and really had a good time. I think I've opened up to games with more direct conflict and combat since then. And I really enjoyed this game. There's a lot of asymmetry. I think the game is known for having these 4 different very asymmetric factions. And it's an area control game where you're conquering territories and trying to hold territories and trying to ruin territories. You're kind of trying to end the world, really, which is very different than other games. But Chaos in the Old World does something really interesting that I don't think I've seen in other games. I'm sure it's in some other asymmetric game, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. Which is there's one faction, one character called Khorne in Chaos in the Old World that is more powerful than the others. So this is a fully competitive game where all players are competing with each other for the win. A couple different ways to win, and Khorne is just more powerful than the others. And I'm not sure if this is by design. I'm guessing it is. Eric Lang is a brilliant designer. I'm guessing it is by design, or if it's just something that's known by the community of people who play Chaos in the Old World. But and I can only see a few of the ways that Khorne is more powerful. I've only played twice. One was recent, and there's just a few things about Khorne that does make that character, that faction, really powerful. If the other factions don't go after Khorne or don't cater their strategy to deal with Khorne. And I just found this really interesting in an asymmetric game that that instead of trying to make all the factions exactly equal balanced, that not only are the factions very different, but 3 are on one level and 1 is on a whole nother level, which creates a really interesting level of engagement and interaction between the players, because it's not a team game at all. I never felt like I was working with the other 2 players. I was green, and there were 2 other players, and there was the Khorne player. I never felt like I was working with those players to take down Khorne, but there was this feel of, if we don't deal with Khorne, one of us is definitely, or all of us are definitely going to lose, and Khorne's going to win. So that created a lot of interesting table talk and decisions amongst the players. Whereas normally in a game like this, even though there is interaction between players in a game with combat and conflict, usually I'm hiding my strategy. I'm not sharing it with any other players. Whereas in this game, I was more open to talk about it because I wanted to make sure that we didn't let this one player win. He did inevitably win anyway in the very end of the game. Khorne did win, but it created a really interesting interaction with the game. So it kind of opened up some design space in my head for asymmetric games where perfect balance maybe isn't always the best way to go. That you can actually get some really interesting interactions and player decisions if you don't try to perfectly balance everything, as long as that there's plenty of space in the game and the possibility of those interactions. Like in Scythe, there's the threat of combat, but combat doesn't happen all that often. Inside, the factions really need to be as balanced as possible. But in a game like Chaos in the Old World, it really isn't as necessary, and it created a really interesting experience. If you can think of any other asymmetric games that do this, where there's an intentional lack of balance, and that creates a really interesting decision space and interaction space, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Or if you want to talk about your favorite game mechanism in Chaos in the Old World, I'd love to hear that as well. Thanks.